nobody answered, something like that?
I called and I called and nobody answered.
And nobody answered, yeah. So this is something that, yeah.
And
so you heard this like every morning.
And then that little farm village before we went into Germany, across the Ruhr River.
Yeah.
I would hear that at the crack of dawn in the morning, and I said, "Who is that?" And
it was just part of the atmosphere.
Yeah, and in the morning you hear that, and I thought that, and I really enjoyed hearing that.
Yeah. Well, let's say hello to our audience, Dan. Welcome to Ask John. Today we are talking to Dan McCabe, who had some experience as a World War II veteran and actually was a prisoner of war for a short time, right at the end of the war. And he's been sharing his experiences, which are really fascinating, and gotten involved with something called, what was that thing called? Soaring Valor, that I guess Gary Sinise has been involved in, and getting people together. And you've had some wonderful experiences in the last few years, reconnecting.
Yeah, last year. So,
tell me how you got into it in the first place. Was this like, were you one of those young guys that just wanted to go off to war, or were you reluctant? What was your feeling?
Okay. My military history.
Yeah. Tell me how you got started.
Well, on October the 25th of 1943, I was 18. And all of the men had to register for the draft. I registered for the draft, and when I was 18 in October. December the 21st of 1943, I was greeted into the Army. I was drafted.
You were drafted. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So you weren't first in line. Yeah. Okay.
I had the option of going into the Marines, the Navy, or the Army. The Marines would give me 1 week to get my affairs in order. The Navy would give me 2 weeks, and the Army would give me 3 weeks. I elected to take the Army.
delay, yeah.
So on the 11th of January, 1944, I had to report for active duty.
And you were a young man
in Buffalo, New York.
Young man of 19.
Pardon me?
You were 19 years old?
18.
18.
Yeah.
18. Yeah.
Just 18 in a couple of months.
Yeah. Wow.
And then when I had to report for active duty, they went from from Buffalo, New York, down to New York City, and then a ferry boat over to Long Island. The reception center was in I believe it was Camp Upton, Long Island. That's where you sent your civilian clothes back home, and you got your uniforms and your shots and your induction into the Army, all that good stuff, and tests and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And after the reception center, we were sent to Camp Croft, South Carolina, for infantry training. And so basic infantry training.
That's your basic training, yeah.
In Camp Croft, South Carolina.
So how was that? Was that?
That was an experience. You found out you're just a number, and
I'm guessing though that you find out that you have more capacity than you know. Is that true? Is that how do you?
Well, yeah, you did a lot of things you never thought you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a good experience when you think back on it. Didn't think so at the time, but it was beneficial for everybody.
Yeah. And how long is basic training?
No, I think, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it was.
And then were you immediately deployed at that point? Or?
No, after basic training, I had let's see, a 2-week leave at home or something like that. I go back home, and then I was assigned to the 69th Infantry Division in Camp Shelby, Mississippi, and it was just outside of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, just outside of Hattiesburg. There's
Okay.
Camp Shelby, anyhow, with the 69th Infantry Division for advanced training. And they did it because Congress passed something that the younger recruits needed a little more training than the older ones, I guess.
And you said advanced training, so that seems like maybe there's some specialty in training, or
no, it was all infantry,
Okay.
but it was infantry with the whole division, not just a basic training thing like you would go. Basic training was just platoons going here and there and doing that.
And you were just a number, as you said.
Yeah, and then when you went in the infantry, you were assigned to a unit, and they were you went on maneuvers and all kinds of stuff like that with the 69th Division. And in October they deployed the 69th Division to head out for Europe, and we moved the entire division all the way to New Jersey, and it was in Camp Kilmer, and we debarked from Camp Kilmer and get on the boat and went over to England, and the big old convoy going over to England, and we left New York City the 15th of November 1944.
So this is the division that you were in, and how many?
Division, we were on, the division was on several boats.
Okay,
But
so it's,
we were in a convoy, and then the boat that I was in was a converted passenger liner that was in port. I think it was a German liner, and was taken over and utilized as a troop carrier.
yeah.
For the United States at that time. But we went on the convoy all the way over to England, and we landed in England the first part of December in 1944. And then we were set into a little town, Winchester, England is what the name of the town was. And we were just kind of waiting to get to be deployed over to France, and Christmas morning they woke us up and said 25 men from each platoon are going to be flown to the front this afternoon as replacements, and so you can pick, you can join, volunteer, or you'd be picked. It's your choice.
If not enough people volunteer, then they dig a little deeper.
25 people from each platoon is going to go.
And didn't they say something about how you were going to be together in the platoon? Or?
No, they didn't say that.
Oh, they didn't say that. You thought they?
The fellows that we trained with, we thought, well, hey, we were all trained together. We'll be together and go on over there. And
makes sense.
And so, anyhow, they couldn't fly us, and so we had to go by train and marching and trucks.
It was a weather issue. They couldn't get the planes off the ground.
Well, the weather.
Yeah, the weather. Yeah.
Weather was stormy and
so you got into trucks,
and
and you got into trains,
and we got until we got to the coast of England, and we got on a big old LST boat, and then it's a landing craft. Let's see, tanks and personnel, or whatever they call that thing. Yeah, it's a great big old long thing, and we went across the channel and we landed at Le Havre, France. And when you just go right up to the beach, and they open the bow, and the ramp comes down. You just walk off that thing right onto the beach, right into the town of Le Havre, and from there we went up and around and to Havre a little bit, and started on our way up towards Belgium, and we're the.
So at this moment, you have been in the service for how long?
Well, let's see, that would be, I went in the 11th, actually active duty the 11th of January, and this was, let's see, in December, so it was just less than a year.
Yeah, okay.
And
so you're getting on all different kinds of transportation, and you're headed.
And to get down to down to Belgium anyhow.
Okay.
The last leg of our trip down into Belgium, we were in the 6x6 trucks, a whole line of trucks, a convoy of trucks with a bunch of us troops and stuff, and we got into this. It was a farm, well, not a farmyard, a rail yard. A whole bunch of railroads tracks were coming along there, and the driver that I was in, he said, "This is as far as we go," and there was explosions and fighting. You could hear small arms and artillery things and flashes and all kinds of good stuff.
And it was because of that they didn't want to move further? Or?
Well,
no?
The driver said, "This is as far as we go, you get off here." And then the trucks all took off and left, and we just just left us there.
And then you're hiking in, is that?
Pardon me?
You were then hiking in?
Yeah, well, we were just in mass right there,
okay.
and with no direction, no nothing, and there was nobody there. Just a bunch of us standing around in the cold, and it was in the middle of the night. And then when it finally got light enough, then the Army troops came by, and that's when I was assigned to the 83rd Infantry Division.
And you got some frostbite at that time, did you?
Well,
no?
that was
another time.
That was New Year's Eve, actually, when we got down into that little rail yard in Belgium. And we went from that rail yard when the division came down, or the Army came down. We were assigned to different units, and instead of us being like in a mass or a group of us all together, then we just you go here, you go over there, and they just ran us everywhere. We just scattered like seeds.
Yeah.
So we were just replacements going to whichever company, whoever needed them.
Yeah.
And I went to the 83rd E Company of the 83rd Infantry Division, the 331st Regiment. Yeah. Anyway, and when we went right up into the Battle of the Bulge, right up into the front lines, and I was up there till the 19th of January when I was taken off the line, went back to a little field hospital.
So what was that like for you, seeing that kind of action? That must be intense.
Oh, it was well, it's almost indescribable. You just, yeah, it's you're scared to death more or less, and you're you're a number, and you go you go here, you go there, wherever you're told to go. That's what you do, and so.
Yeah. You're a number, and you don't know when your number is going to be drawn.
Oh yeah, well that's it. Yeah. And then I did find out that when you're a member of a unit up on the front lines, you stay up there until something happens to you. You either get wounded, you get killed, you get sick, you get something. Something happens to you, and if it doesn't, you stay up there until it does. Until the unit gets so depleted that they pull the unit offline, and then whoever's on the front line to go back into a reserve sort of status.
You were seeing others not making it.
Pardon me?
You were seeing others not making it.
Oh yeah, many. Yeah.
That must be an awful thing to experience when especially when you get to know people and.
Yeah, and then of course, every day or every couple of days, you'd get some new troops, new replacements were coming in. They were getting some more replacements coming in to take their places when they could get them. It's just a continual going, and you have an objective, you go attack to it, and take it as quickly as you could, and then they could like dig into or make a foxhole or something, and some kind of protection, and defend the area that you just acquired. And then pretty soon they'd say, okay, saddle up.
So what I'm hearing you saying, they bring in fresh troops, but they don't relieve the first arrivals.
No.
They don't until.
No. It isn't a rotation sort of a thing. No.
Yeah.
who's ever up there?
Yeah.
Some of the fellows never relieved, never anything. They're there the entire time that they were on the front line service. And of course, like I say, and when you're in the firefight with the guys, you're there till something happens to you.
And so what happened to you?
Well, I got had a laryngitis or something. I couldn't talk. My vocal cords weren't closing or doing something.
Yeah.
And I had a fever of 100 and something, and so the medics they just sent me back to the field hospital on the 19th of January, and I didn't know if it was the 19th or the 21st, and because there was 19 people left in the company I was in, or it was 21. And years later, I did see an after-battle report. It showed that I went back into the field hospital on the 19th, that there was 21 people left. and at that time, and that was the 19th of December, or 19th of January. In January 1945, yeah.
So that got you out of...
Then I was off the front lines. Yeah. I went back into a field hospital. And when I was in there for a week or so, whatever it was, then I was sent back to the unit. And that's when we were in a little farm village, getting new, replenishing the whole unit, getting new replacements, and getting you back up to strength and all that stuff for getting ready to go into Rhineland, Germany, into across the Ruhr Valley, Ruhr River, at Jülich, and that's where George came in there with his that little farm village. We were in there.
Well, this is your friend George that you reconnected with just a few years ago.
Yeah,
and that's where you met him.
Well, I didn't meet him. I heard him.
You just knew that he was there. Okay.
That's when the crack of dawn. He's hear that his big old song going out there, and I thought that was pretty nice. And I asked the fellows, who is it? And they said, well, they called him the troubadour, and that's all I knew about it.
So you're redeployed, and I think you. Yeah,
and then we went from that little farm village. We went across the Ruhr River at Jülich, and we went and attacked all the way to Neuss, N-U-E-S-S, in Germany, right on the Rhine River. And the 1st of March, we went on a midnight, well, let's see, midnight, whatever it was, an attack. Go out, just going out with the several platoons going out and do an attack.
I'm assuming this is a surprise attack, but I guess.
Well, it was.
I mean, is there any other kind of attack? You hope it's a surprise.
Yeah. Well, we were advancing and still advancing, and we got up along this one little canal, or didn't know what it was, but found later it was the Erft Canal. But anyhow, it was a canal, and we were fired on, and on that canal, and the company commander was with us with a brand new lieutenant. It was the lieutenant's first action. He was with the platoon that I was in, anyhow, and we went down. We crossed that canal and went up the other bank, and then the company commander had us line all up just in a line, and then at a given command, everybody got up, and we just got up and advanced across this big open field, 500 or 600 yards to a big building. And when we went across there, we used a marching fire technique. You take a step and each fire, take another step and fire, and just the whole group, the whole two platoons, whatever it was, went out across there and then attacked through there. And we went through a bunch of Germans into barbed wire stuff and got into the building itself. And when we got in the building, we captured 15 or 20 German soldiers in there. And And we held them for, 5 or 6 hours when we were in there. And we had part of that building. Germans were on both sides of us. We went through them, so they were behind us, and there was still some between us and the river.
Oh.
And so we were in that one little pocket.
Yeah.
And some of the other platoons, they got back out. Some of the other part of the company got back back across that little canal again, whatever. But we were right in that little building with that with that group of prisoners that we had.
And it seems to me that when you have prisoners, that's kind of a burden, isn't it? Because you can't do much else than the guard your prisoners.
Well, yeah, we had them actually when we captured them fellas and stuff. Then they were put in a group, and then I was assigned to go cover a section of that building and stuff. But anyhow, then when we kept them, we patted down several fellas, and that one fella I patted down. And when I was in turn captured, he came back and he says,
"Oh, so you can't? Okay, well, don't skip ahead so fast. So so you've got these prisoners.
Yeah,
and you pat this guy down.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
And several hours later, when we ran out of ammunition, because we used up most of it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Getting into that building.
And they told you to destroy your weapons.
And the company commander gave the order, destroy your weapons. And so we had to go, I didn't want to break up my rifle.
Yeah, and why are you supposed to destroy your weapons?
Well, he said you don't want them to use them against us. You use the rifles against us or whatever.
And so you're preparing to be captured. Is that?
But yeah, the company commander already gave the order to destroy the weapons.
You're going to surrender,
and he well, I guess he could see that there's no way we could get out of there, and then we were completely surrounded.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so now you get to tell that part of the story. The same guy comes back to you. You patted him down.
Yeah, and the one fellow that he come back up to me and he patted me down and he. First me, he's now you.
and he said that in English.
And he said perfect English, and it surprised me that he could say perfect English. I said, well, that's the way it goes.
That's the way it goes, yeah. Oh, it's nice.
But then anyhow, they took us.
I think that's nice, I'm not sure.
Well, that was a horrible feeling to be.
Yeah.
And, damn, I felt like a criminal, and I could remember seeing some of the news things in the movies. They used to have they'd run the movie things
and
the newsreels in the movie, and they'd show bank robbers being captured or something, and
so you felt like you were one of those guys, like the bank robbers.
I felt like a criminal.
But you weren't. Yeah. I wonder why you felt that way.
Well, here I was. I was taken captive, and put your hands on top of your head, and all of a sudden
you were serving your country.
Yeah. But that's the feeling that I got. I don't know if anybody else did, but that's the feeling that I got about that. And I could see flashbacks of them guys getting captured by the police and the stuff like that. And I thought, damn.
So you don't know where you're going.
Had no idea.
What was the place that you went to? What was that like?
We were just in that building, and it was maybe 400 or 500 yards or less than that to the Rhine River itself. And so they took us from that building, marched us along the river, and we went across the big old bridge into Dusseldorf. Dusseldorf was on the east side of the Rhine River. Neuss, N-U-E-S-S, is on the west side of the river. And we went across the bridge into Dusseldorf. And then they just actually marched us up and down around the streets and stuff. And Americans on the Rhine. We were.
They marched you up and down the street? What, to put you on display? What was that?
Well, we were more or less on display.
Yeah.
And it felt like we were on display. And
yeah, it sounds like it.
And of course, there's artillery, and there's still fighting, and there's aircraft going over, and all kinds of good stuff. And here, you're one of the people that are blowing hell out of them, you know. And so we were really on display, actually, as far as that was concerned. And,
yeah, and then they confined you someplace. So
well, yeah, they just had us down into Dusseldorf until we started moving us back from Dusseldorf, and we were on trains and marching most of the time, and then until we got to the little town of Limburg, Germany, and just outside of Limburg was Stalag X11A, and I didn't know if it was X11A or if it's Roman numerals 12A. Turns out it's 12A. They used the Roman numerals for the Stalag, yeah. Anyhow. But that was a little prisoner camp that we were put into that prisoner camp, and we were there for I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, whatever it was. And they woke us up in the middle of the night, took us down and put us in boxcars in the rail center in Limburg. And at the crack of dawn, they started moving the old train out of the rail yard there. And we got about 2 or 3 kilometers, and then here come the 51s and the 47s. And they come down. They started strafing and bombing the train until it stopped. And then we were, of course, we were all locked up in them cars again. And train stopped, and then the bombing and the strafing stopped after a while. And we stayed in that car until that night, and when it was dark again, and they took us out there, opened the cars, and we could get out of there. Then we started marching, and we marched for, about 2 or 3 days until we got into that little farm village where our guards gave up, and they stacked their guns.
But this whole time you were captive in the train and the hiking, the marching, and so forth. And then the war was over at some point, and the guards.
Well, no, the war was still going on.
It wasn't over yet. Okay. So what you're saying? Your guards laid down their weapons?
Yeah, we got into that little village, farm village, or whatever, some little village in Germany. I have no idea what it was, but they had a church steeple, and they had white flags and stuff like that, and then the guards had no place else to go, I guess, as far as they could go with us. And so they stacked all their guns, and they kept a couple of German soldiers to guard the guns, so we couldn't get them, I guess. And then they just kind of turned us loose, and we could walk around a little town if we wanted to, whatever. But and several hours after that, then the tank corps came rolling into town, and that's when we were liberated.
Ah, okay.
And
that seems like a strange thing, though. They sort of left you alone, and presumably you could have rejoined some unit somewhere.
Well,
no.
Well, yeah, but where would you go?
It was too
just a village. Had no idea where you're at.
You're
You're just there.
Okay.
And of course we didn't have any strength to do anything anyhow. We were completely wore out by marching and all that stuff. We couldn't do anything anyhow.
Yeah.
Couldn't hardly stumble around.
So then you were liberated. What was that like?
That was when the tank corps come in, we got some K rations and cigarettes and stuff from them, the guys that had the tanks and stuff, and so, and we then had a little something that we could have a little bit to eat anyhow. Yeah. and there were cigarettes. You could get your cigarettes. You could smoke your cigarette. Everybody smoked at that time too.
Yeah.
Seemed like it. But the next morning after that, we were in that village that night. The next morning there was trucks, and we went on a truck convoy into some place there in Germany, in a big like a storage area or a bunch of buildings with storage stuff, and and the drivers dropped us off, and then we just were in there, and what happened, the drivers went back and they reported that they brought a bunch of prisoners down to that little storage thing, and they said, yeah, okay, but he didn't say they were German prisoners, they were American prisoners, so nothing happened until the next day. Then some medics come down, or somebody come, our army or other whatever was, come down, and they found out they were American prisoners, and then they brought a bunch of ambulances and all that kind of stuff, and then we all were sent to different little field hospitals or wherever it went. I went to another field hospital there, and was in that field hospital for, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks. Wasn't that long. Yes, 2 or 3 days, whatever it was. And then they flew me in a little DC-3 plane to Paris, and I was in a hospital in Paris. And I remember I was in a hospital on the 12th of April, and that's when they came out, and it says President Roosevelt, yeah, passed away or something. And so that was on the 12th of April, and so that's the one date I do remember being in Paris in that hospital there. So, and then shortly after that, anyhow, then I was sent from that hospital to Camp Lucky Strike. They call it Lucky Strike. It's right on the French coast there or something, and got on a big old Liberty boat, and that boat went over to Southampton, picked up some more soldiers or something, whatever they picked up there, and then we went on a convoy and came back to New York City. And we were halfway across on the way back to New York City, and the captain announced Germany just surrendered. That was, I think, the 8th of May or something like that. And when we got back into New York City, it was the 16th of May. It was 6 months and 1 day. I left in November the 15th in 1945 or 44, and come back the 16th of May in 45. Yeah. I left in 44 and come back in 45. Yeah. 6 months and a day. And then
that was a short tour, wasn't it?
Huh?
Wow. So you weren't there that long, but you had some experiences.
Oh, yeah, it's a tremendous time. Yeah, it was. Yeah, a horrible time, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I went from there to you got a leave to go home, and then
you got to start your life all over again.
Well, yeah, you'd think so, but then went to Lake Placid up in the Adirondacks, where they call it R&R, rest and relaxation or something like that. And then from there, I was assigned to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to learn how to fire 81 millimeter mortars. Get ready to go fight the Japanese.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the war, the war in Japan just surrendered or whatever, and so the war was over. So the training was stopped.
Yeah.
And then I was assigned to Fort Dix, New Jersey, which was the separation center, and I had to stay there until I had enough points to get discharged. So I was discharged the 18th of April, 1946.
So then you're home, and then you start your life, and you do your work, and you have your family, and years and years and years go by, and you don't have any connection with any of these guys that you served with. Is that right? For very many years.
Oh yeah. I didn't have any contact with, and didn't make any contact with anybody for actually 60 years.
Why is that?
Well, I didn't talk about it. Didn't want to have anything to do with it. And if I see any things on the news or any stuff that had any of the fighting or the war went on from there to Korea and into the Vietnams and all the other different things. I just would shy away from all of that.
We have these books here, you know. I just kind of look at them, and they're so fragile. I don't want to touch them. But your son told me that he has found as a child he would find these, and he'd know something about your service, and then he'd ask you about it, and you wouldn't tell him anything, and then he couldn't find the books anymore. You stuck them away. What'd you do with them?
Somebody borrowed the books, and I don't know who it was.
Okay.
And they were fine books when they left, and they come back like that. So.
Yeah.
But then when they come back, and I said, well, they're pretty well trashed.
But you just didn't want to talk about it. I don't think I think that's not unusual.
Yeah, no, it isn't. I found that out later, but
yeah.
And
I wonder if everyone thinks that their situation is unique. You just said you found out later that a lot of other people felt the same way, but at the time you thought maybe you're the only one who felt that way.
I didn't know. I just thought. I just shut everything off. I just didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, but 60 years.
and that's the 60th anniversary, and March the 2nd in 2005. I thought, okay, it's 60 years. I wonder if there's anybody left. And then the kids, they got me into the little email-y stuff and all that. I didn't want to fool with them damn old machine.
The internet has changed everything, hasn't it?
But I got into doing some of that email stuff, and then, well, I'll post a little note, see if there's anybody left. So I sent it to the division, organization that they've got, and then from that contact, I got a list of names that were in E Company that I had in the 83rd Division. And so I started calling the fellows, and I would talk to them, and several of them I asked about that old song, and finally I asked George, and I was talking to him.
Okay, wait a minute. I don't want you to tell that story yet. I want to end with that. I love that story, and that's how we're going to close. So then you got involved in this thing called Soaring Valor. And this is something that Gary Sinise is sponsoring.
Yeah.
So he's bringing people together.
Yeah. He's been doing that for quite a few years, actually, ever since he was when he was Captain Dan or something like that, with that movie thing that he was in.
I wonder if I can advance this. There we are. So there's a picture of you, and there's Gary. Yeah.
No, there he is.
Yeah. So Gary is doing some marvelous work with
the troops, and we were the Soaring Valor, the one that we were on. I think that was the 8th trip that he had taken with a plane load of troops to the World War II Museum in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And then see, it's Gary's foundation and Tug McGraw's foundation and the American Airlines. American Airlines, they supplied the plane and the crew and everything to fly us there and back again. And I guess he does it to all these other groups that he's taken in there. And so he's taken some other groups since I went in that group that I was in. So. A wonderful thing he's doing for the guys.
Yeah.
But it's just not the troops. He's also looking out for the families of the troops and the youngsters. He took a whole flock of kids someplace to Disney World or somewhere.
Oh, that's really sweet. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so he's a fantastic individual.
Yeah. So you have some buddies that you hung out with, and we have a picture of 3 of you. And one of these guys is George, and the other one's Howard.
Howard.
And Howard has passed.
Yeah, Howard passed.
When was that picture taken?
Pardon me?
When was that picture taken? That was in 2005?
That was in 2015. Yeah, 2015.
Okay.
We went. That's when we went to
4 years ago.
To the Model T thing, whatever it was.
Right.
And because it was 70 years since we were together. And last time the 3 of us were in the same the same year we were all liberated, captured together
Yeah.
and liberated together.
Yeah.
And that would be the 29th of March in 1945. So this would be the
And you know that Howard has passed, and we still have George.
George
yeah.
George is still with us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Okay, now you get to tell the story about George. You were talking about this song. What was the song called? I forget what we called it.
I called and nobody answered.
And nobody answered. I think the song is called "Nobody Answered."
Yeah.
And I found a clip of that on YouTube. The Hee Haw Quartet. So we're going to play that in a little while. But so you're telling George about your experience waking up every morning, somebody singing "Called and I Called, Nobody Answered."
When I was talking to the fellows, I asked him. I said, "Do you hear that fellow that sang that song?" He goes, "Hee, that was me." and George, he lives in Nixon, Missouri, just outside of Branson, and his health was such that he couldn't travel very much, and so.
So George took it upon himself to get up every morning and sing a song.
Yeah, that was in 1945.
Yeah.
I don't know if he still does, but he was still singing a little bit of it.
I like to think that he sings every morning.
I called, but nobody answered. I knocked on the door, but no one could I see. I called and I called, but nobody answered. Nobody answered me.
Yeah.
Dan, I'm so glad that we had this time to chat about your experiences. I hope it gets easier to talk about it.
Well, actually, by going to the reunions, I went to the first reunion I went to was in 2005, as it was 60th years. We've gone 60th years, and when I went to the first union I went to was in Paducah, Kentucky, and so I went in there, and of course I didn't know a soul when I went in there, but then, hey, talking to the different fellows, and you see the ones that were in the same unit, and not the same company, but the same unit and stuff. And then you start talking to the other fellows that were in the other units. There's the 329th, the 330th, and the 331st regiments. That's the 83rd Division, anyhow. Okay. And when you start talking to the fellows, well, we've all experienced the same thing, and so there was it just kind of opened the whole door. Then from that point on, I was able to look at some more stuff and
you don't
feel
feel
about it.
so all alone, do you?
Yeah. It made
nice.
a big difference. Yeah. And so
that's good.
And so with that,
Dan, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful, and I want to thank you for joining us. And tune in again. Take care now.
I wandered again to my old cabin home, and I called for the loved ones I wanted to see. Then I waited the voice that would bid me come in, but nobody answered me. I called and I called, but nobody answered. I searched everywhere, but no one could I see. Then I knocked on the door, like I oft had before, but nobody answered me. My thoughts all turned back to the long time.